You are listening to Making Sense with Alison Blackler. Welcome to Making Sense. This is our 10th episode. We are here in Wirral Wave Studio at Make in Hamilton Square at the heart of Birkenhead. And here in the studio with me is George, who, as you know, is the technical side of the show. And we are, as ever, loving creating this show, picking the tunes and hopefully sending something out that you can enjoy. We hope that you enjoyed the last show. And on the last show, we had our special guest, Sean Orford. And our main focus there was how to manage the mind when there is something that is out of your control. And it is certainly a difficult task, and the power is being in the moment. And there are lots of different ways of you practicing being in the moment. And in the interview in that episode, Sean and I came up with some ideas for you. So if you haven't watched that, do check it out. So welcome to this show. And in this episode, we are going to focus on habits, or we can call them patterns. We will be looking at the challenge we have with bad habits and also how we can create new healthy ones. Our special guest is coach and author Danny Greeves. We will be playing our chat with him later in the show. Before we get started, I just want to share a few things that have been going on for us here at Two Minds. I have been working with lots of businesses, and some of the patterns and habits that I'm noticing are people who are not taking breaks, who are pushing and ploughing on, wanting to achieve their goals, wanting to achieve their tasks, but they're not having some time to just relax. They're actually frustrated because they are tired, they are more irritable. And I think it's really important for us to notice the patterns that we have in our working life as well as our home life. So hopefully during this show we can think about some of those too. Okay, we also have some great tunes lined up for you, all selected with lyrics linked to our topic. And we also have a quote of the show. So do stay tuned. Okay then, so let's have a think about habits and patterns which our minds create. And these are so powerful, and they can feel like we have no control. Sometimes we have to be clear first on what it is that we want to change. So that's usually our first job, is when we notice patterns and habits, we need to be clear on which ones we want to change. And also, which ones belong to whom. When we are unaware of a habit, and what I mean there is not just that you're not noticing it, it is the fact that you don't even know that you're doing it. So the first task is simply becoming aware of it. No judgment, just noticing. When we are unaware of our habits and patterns, then these are often so ingrained that they are just part of who you are, or they may sit in a blind spot. And from here, it's hard to spot how we are affected or how we affect the situation, and we are able to see what needs to be done. We have to catch ourselves out sometimes and understand why it is happening so that we can change it. We can't change something that we haven't spotted. And our lives are full of habits, patterns, thinking patterns, behavioural patterns, all a habit. And they are familiar to us and therefore the norm. We obviously have many positive ones, and they're a huge part of how and who we are, while others do cause us problems, pain and suffering. So just imagine that all these habits create a groove in your neural network, which leads us in the same direction time and time again. This includes what we do and how we do it. We have patterns in our thinking. These become habits too. On a basic level, have you noticed that you put your shoes and socks on in exactly the same way every time? We do so many things in a particular way without any conscious thought, and therefore it is a habit. We can have instant and the same thoughts about something which are a pattern in themselves. We can have the same thought every time about a person or a situation. And this can feel so strong it is immovable. For example, a person can think that people driving a red car are flashy or that all men are predators. For good and positive thoughts, usually there is no concern, though many of our thoughts can limit us and cause difficulties. When we are unaware of the hidden patterns, it is, therefore, the habit. Okay, so that's kicked us off a little bit on our topic today. But for now, let's have a tune to get us started. And today we have chosen a great tune from 1979. It is Message in a Bottle by The Police. This tune is about when we feel lonely, look for ways to reach out, to connect with someone, anyone. And that then this is where the message in a bottle comes into play for Sting's character. In this song, the biggest revelation comes from the central character discovering 100 billion bottles washed up on the shore. He takes this as evidence that many people feel lonely and cut off, and that he is not alone in his aloneness. It is really important that we don't feel alone if we are struggling, and also to know that firstly, there may be many others who will be feeling similar to you, and also it is okay to reach out. A really powerful message. I hope you enjoy it.
in a bottle. Message in a bottle.
Online and mobile.
Alexa, play Wirral Wave. Wirral Wave.
Hope you enjoyed that. A little trip back to the 70s. And George and I were just saying about the drumming, which is obviously George's thing, and the drumming in that tune or that band at the time was ahead of the game. So brilliant. Okay, so what is really important to me about this show and my work is that people, you, feel supported, connected and empowered to make any changes that you want. And it is also important to say that making these changes can be hard, sometimes really hard, though it is great once you are on the other side. So if you are wanting to make some changes, do hang in there. It is hard, but when you make them, they're pretty good. So in some situations, or with some habits or behaviours, we can feel really stuck. I often hear people saying exactly that they feel so stuck. You're not sure what to do, never mind how to make the changes. It can feel like there is no light at the end of the tunnel. More often than not, you don't understand what causes the stuck feeling and why you are thinking or behaving in the way that you are. I hear people say things like, I can't seem to control it, or I can't help it. And the behaviours or the thinking is autopilot and the responses follow. Therefore, it is the pattern. This might be around food, it might be around exercise, it might be around getting tasks done, it might be thoughts about how you look. It literally can be anything and everything. We have a habit about how we think about something, and it is likely to be based on an experience. So you had a bad experience in a shop or a restaurant, and your auto thinking is probably no good there, but based on one experience. And when we can spot that we have patterns in our thoughts or our behaviours, we are well on our way to shifting them. So remember, anything is achievable. So before we listen to my chat with Danny Greeves, let's just have a quick look about limiting beliefs. It is not to be underestimated how powerful limiting beliefs are, and to know that they can rule our lives. Our subconscious mind holds on to any beliefs we have about ourselves, positive or negative, and this can determine how we behave. These beliefs are often deep-rooted, and if not explored or changed, will define you. The negative ones will limit your experiences and can stop you from putting yourself forward or pushing yourself into new, different or challenging situations, including relationships. When this becomes a way of being, you are then limiting your hopes and your expectations. And this is likely to distract you from your own true path. When we have negative thinking patterns, then we are very likely to experience issues. It can feel overwhelming when we are constantly unhappy or unsettled, and we often put this down to someone else's behaviour. If we take some time to understand why we have responded in a certain way, then we can move on. Our self-limiting or negative beliefs cause us to distort or interpret situations. Whatever you believe about yourself affects you in almost every situation. So an example is if you believe you don't deserve to be treated well, then you are very likely to attract people who will treat you poorly and put you down. Your belief of yourself is then validated. This kind of person is clearly not a positive influence in your life, although the secret message is more about you than them. The feedback from you, or for you, and the reason you attracted them into your life was for you to see these beliefs, which are often hidden, and you can set to work to change them. Once these are realised and changed, then you can attract the right things into your life. Remembering that many beliefs about yourself are not true. It can never be true that you don't deserve love. Your beliefs and decisions are created based on what has happened to you and how people have communicated or interacted with you. This combination creates your reality and your interpretation. And this interpretation will then become your truth. Just as the mind protects you by providing an automatic response to a dangerous or perceived dangerous situation, it is also constantly searching for any evidence that a belief is true. The mind creates an internal response to a situation based on the information that is stored. For example, a partner hasn't texted during the day to check if someone is feeling better, and this can be interpreted as they don't care. The mind automatically gives a thought relating to the belief within. It may be, this has happened to us before, so watch out. Or it may be that the belief is that you're not good enough, so that they're not interested in you. Another example could be two colleagues are huddled together in an office, and a third person who has issues with self-confidence interprets this as they are talking about her or him and taking it personally. When we doubt ourselves, maybe whether we are good enough or not lovable, not able to be successful in a relationship, in a job, or anything else, it has a direct impact on almost everything. Most importantly, on our happiness. Paying attention to these negative thoughts and beliefs starts us on a journey of self-discovery. So, I think it's probably time for us to have another tune before we play our interview. So we are going to have an upbeat tune now by Calvin Harris and Rag and Bone Man, Giant. I love the words in this song, the words that go, don't hide your emotions, you can throw down your guard and feed from the notion we can be who we are. I hope you enjoy it.
I understood loneliness before I knew what it was. I saw the pills on your table for your unrequited love. Well, I would be nothing without you holding me up. Now I'm strong enough for both of us, both of us, both of us, both of us. I am a giant. Stand up on my shoulders, tell me what you see. 'Cause I am a giant. We'll be breaking boulders underneath our feet. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am a giant. Oh, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am a giant. Don't hide your emotions. You can throw down your guard and feed from the notion we can be who we are. You taught me something, yeah. Freedom is out. It was you taught me living it. Togetherness, togetherness, togetherness. I am a giant. Stand up on my shoulders, tell me what you see. 'Cause I am a giant. We'll be breaking boulders underneath our feet. I am, I am. shake, roll away in the dirt under me, yeah. I'm gonna shake, roll away in the dirt under me, yeah. I'm gonna shake, throw it away in the dirt, yeah. I'm gonna shake, throw it away in the dirt, yeah. I'm gonna shake, throw it away in the dirt, yeah. I'm gonna shake, throw it away in the dirt.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that tune. So I just want to keep sharing some more thoughts on our self-limiting beliefs and the impact it has on us. When we are unaware of these things, we often then are likely to blame someone else. When we feel confused or miserable, we can lose sight of who we are, feel lost and therefore stuck. And in my book, I call this the reset class. How we see ourselves plays out in our life, and we may only break these patterns when we are honest with ourselves. It is fair to say that we all have limiting beliefs in some shape or another, and the impact of these beliefs can be destructive. Regardless of any limiting beliefs, remember, as humans, there is an innate, strong desire to be liked and loved. This can present itself in an unhealthy way and overrule everything else. When our limiting beliefs are playing out, the need becomes desperate to please, to seek approval, and be loved. What will follow are behaviours to try and settle these feelings of discomfort, which is often rooted in insecure or doubt-based thinking. The behaviours and even habits then become a response, somewhat erratic or irrational, and certainly not one that is necessarily favourable or positive. Some negative beliefs can be kept buried and can be less obvious on a day-to-day basis. Having said that, they can be triggered, often unexpectedly, when a new situation or person comes along. Sometimes it can come as a surprise. For example, a new relationship prompts a limiting belief relating to insecurity that pops up, maybe in response to something the new partner is doing without realising. These triggers can happen in all different settings. It may be at work. You're plodding away happily and you get a new role or promotion. You have been fine in your old role, but your new manager has a different approach. They are quite abrupt in their communication, and this throws you into a place of doubt, uncertainty, and can lead you to question your ability and performance. This might trigger an emotional response based on an old memory, and so unlock your self-limiting belief. In a personal situation, you might constantly refuse invitations to functions, events, or even dates because of the belief that no one enjoys your company or is interested in you. Or maybe you make yourself go to the party, and when you get there you feel awkward, on edge, and therefore not engaged, which reinforces your beliefs that you're not popular. You start to feel isolated by everyone else, but in fact you have isolated yourself, and there lies the problem. In many situations, we find ourselves thinking that others are judging us, and a feeling of inferiority grows. Through our self-limiting beliefs, you may have put others in a superior position, although it is you that is feeling inferior. And if this is you, in any varying degree, and this kind of situation sounds familiar, it's a huge step to acknowledge this. And when you've done that, give yourself a big well done. It's not easy to acknowledge some challenges within you, whether that's negative thoughts, negative feelings, negative behaviours. But when you have acknowledged them, you are closer to changing them. Okay, so I think it's now time for us to hear our interview with Danny Greeves from Danny Greeves Coaching. We had a great chat about self-limiting beliefs, about habits, and he shares how important it is for us to have a good morning routine. I hope you enjoy it. So I am delighted to be joined by Danny Greeves, and he has a book out called 6 Steps to Self-Confidence, but also has a great story to share, one which I hope will resonate for lots of people. So welcome, Danny. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, my name is Danny Greeves and I'm a coach and hypnotherapist, and I mainly help people discover, if you like, their feelings of inner peace and just to tap into their own self-confidence.
Nice. And obviously that's something I think that we're all aiming for. I spend a lot of time working with people who think they want a better job, more money, a better relationship. And I'm sure those things are really important. And of course they want those. But the key to it all, isn't it, that happiness. Tell us a little bit more about your journey, because I know you've shared a little bit about your own journey in terms of that.
Yeah, so, and to follow up on your point, I think really what we want is the feeling that those things give us, isn't it? So we find them in many different ways, but we're looking for the feeling. And what I found was when I was younger, so I actually trained as a physio. That was originally sort of my way in. And when I was younger, my parents were divorced, and that was quite a big challenge for me. And that kind of set off lots of different challenges in terms of feeling quite anxious, doubting myself, lacking in confidence, particularly around relationships. And that kind of makes sense in terms of where the challenges come from. And from I was very, very young, I knew I wanted to help people in pain. Didn't quite know how that was going to work, but I knew that was something that I was really aware of. And then I found myself in the field of physiotherapy. And I was working in that field for about 10 years. And I was just working with more and more people struggling with chronic issues. And I could do all the treatment that they recommend, and yet they've still got this chronic pain. And it was then that I started to ask, like, what is going on with these people that's causing this? And then it really came down to a lot of emotional issues that weren't being addressed. So when I tapped into that side of things, and I had some wonderful mentors along the way, I then transitioned away from being a physio and then started working with sort of people as a coach and hypnotherapist.
I love that. And I think it's so powerful for people to really focus on the fact that so often physical pain is so linked to emotional pain, mental pain, all that trapped emotion that is so often missed, isn't it? People often know that they feel unhappy, but they're so focused on their physical pain that they don't necessarily pause and think, well, what is the deep cause and the deep root of that?
And there's definitely been quite a big stigma in the past in terms of if anyone has a chronic pain, the idea that it could be emotional was actually quite challenging for a lot of people. Whereas at least now the science is showing that emotions play a role. So it's not in every case and it's not for everyone, but actually being aware that emotions use the same pain pathways, I think open things up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have a little story or a little example that you think is the real one that resonates with most people around pain? Because not everybody's walking around with chronic pain, are they? But they're often walking around with some level of pain that they're not necessarily sure. Do you have a sort of an example that you often use when you're talking to people to help so that I like it that people can really resonate with what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think and it's quite a common pattern that I see, but there's one lady in particular, because I stay in contact with her. And initially she was really struggling with some degree of anxiety, and she was aware of that symptom. And then she was also aware that she was needing to go see a massage therapist almost once a week to help with neck and shoulder pain. And she was also going to see her GP on sort of like a monthly basis with quite significant IBS symptoms. So really struggling sort of with stomach pain, cramps, bloating, that type of thing. And she was aware of these different problems, but she hadn't actually managed to connect them to notice that when anxiety flared up, her neck pain increased and her abdominal symptoms got worse. And so she was looking for these various different treatments, and she was doing everything she could, but that was involving sort of medication from the doctor to help the IBS, massage from the therapist to calm the muscle tension, and then dealing with the anxiety the best way she could. Whereas when we sort of actually worked on resolving the anxiety, and that was based on some painful past experiences that she'd had, as soon as those issues were resolved, the neck pain released, the abdomen relaxed, and all of the other symptoms just cleared up. So I think it is a challenge sometimes because we do box things off, but I think the emotional side of things really is the link that can connect a lot of things together, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's a great example, and knowing in my work, it'll be one that most people can make sense of. And I know for me personally, my clinic, when I work one-to-one, when we do see people face-to-face, is a physiotherapy clinic. And often we cross-refer, I get a lot of their patients who come and see me because exactly as you've just described, they are struggling.
That's a wonderful thing to have. I think more therapy clinics should have that because I think it's so important. Yeah,
definitely. So let's move on to a bit more about your work now and the fact that you've realised that let's focus on the mind. Yes, we still need to focus on the body too, but the mind. And tell us a little bit about that.
So when I was working as a physio, I actually bumped into a neurosurgeon. He was a Mexican chap, about 6'5", built a bit like a Thor from the Avengers movie. And we were sitting down and having sort of a few chats over lunch. And he asked me, do you ever say to your patients at that time, you just have to live with your symptoms, like knee arthritis or something like that? And I said, well, yeah, as a physio, we say that quite a lot. And then he started to ask me some questions about if I really wanted to help people to change on the inside as well as the outside, I was going to have to learn how to help people change their mindset. So he taught me some particular tools. And then I was really fortunate to learn with a master hypnotist who really opened my eyes to the power of language. And then I also was really fortunate to be mentored by another couple of behavioral change experts. And so from each one of them, I kind of extracted what I thought was most important and then kind of put it together into a process. So what I do now is really niche in terms of helping people to resolve anxiety, to feel that inner peace and confidence. And it's about clearing those emotional pains from the past and developing a more positive mindset. So that's really what I love doing now.
Nice. And I love the way you've sort of taken the bits that you felt were right for you and worked for you, because that's sort of my story too. I've got lots of different approaches that I use, and I often describe I've got a toolkit, and in the toolkit I've got lots of different disciplines, different approaches. I started off as a CBT therapist in the NHS, and then I moved into NLP and hypnosis also, although I don't do as much of that now, and also clean language, which I use a lot of, and certainly when I'm working with teams and businesses, I've combined all these things, and I like that. I think instead of just being one thing, it's helpful to be able to bring in different aspects of it all, so that you've got this really, as I described, this great toolkit. So it sounds like you've got something quite similar.
And I use the same word.
Oh,
so one thing that I have noticed is that one of the main reasons people struggle is that they don't have their own toolkit. So they might have maybe one thing that they rely on, but that doesn't always work because, circumstances are different, life happens, there's family changes and things like that. So when we have no tools or we have one tool, we can get limited quite quickly. Whereas when we have like a toolbox, as you described, then depending on what's happening, we've got a variety of different skills. And I think that helps us feel more in control because we've got choices. Yeah. So I think that toolkit is really, really important.
And I think something else that's important for everyone to remember is to have their own toolkit, because we can often be shown something that works brilliantly for one person, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work brilliantly for you.
And I think that's something else that I'm keen for people to do, is to think about what's their one small thing that they can get going. And then once they've got that going, what's the next one small thing? You'll hear me on this show talking about what's your one small thing that you can take from our conversation now, Danny. What's the one small thing that you can just do this today? And then you can build on it, because otherwise it becomes overwhelming, doesn't it, with all of the things that you could do to help yourself. And I think that's sometimes what happens to people. They get a lot of information about what they can do. They know what they need to do to make themselves feel better and feel happier. But actually it feels overwhelming because there's just too many options.
Yeah, there's definitely a huge difference between having an idea and then implementing that idea. And I think one of the challenges just as humans is that we love learning and we love novelty. So often we crave lots of new information, but it's actually not the information that helps us make the change. It's actually implementing it in small, manageable chunks and then celebrating along the way. And I think that applies to habits, it applies to mental health, it applies to so many different areas, whereas we tend to just crave more. And one of the mentors that I work with gave me this analogy, what I think is really nice, is when we're tending to struggle, what we tend to do is become a white belt in about 10 different disciplines, rather than becoming a black belt in one of them and then adding the next one to it. So it kind of fits into just what you said, but I think that analogy is really nice, because there's a lot of white belts out there, but actually it's the black belt that really helps us change.
Yeah, I like that. I think something that I see a lot of people do is they'll start something, they'll start having a little go at meditation or mindfulness or getting to the gym or eating healthily or reading some books or whatever it is, whatever they've picked up along the way. And then they give up because it hasn't worked quick enough. The novelty factor, I think, is really something we should key into, which you shared. Definitely, we love something new and it wears off. And it's at that point that then people get disheartened. Oh, it didn't work out. I tried that. The amount of people I hear say, oh, I tried that. Well, how long did you try it for? Did you feel the benefits yet? We often give up, don't we? So much. Yeah. Just on that brink of it starting to work. I know fitness is definitely like that. Lots of people say they've been going to the gym, they haven't seen the results they wanted, and then they sort of give up a bit. And I always describe, again, a little metaphor that I use again is the mind is like a muscle, and we need to take it to the mind gym. And when we go to the mind gym, we need to do lots of reps. We need to do lots of regular exercise, lots of different variety, just like you would, again, going to the gym. But it's not giving up, but equally not being overwhelmed with how much. And, I think it's something it's really key for people to remember. Yeah.
One of the things that I help people do is create healthy habits and productive habits. And one of the authors that I read is a chap called James Clear, and he has a book called Atomic Habits. And one of his ideas in there, it's a bit of a fancy phrase, I think, but it's called the period of latent potential. And it's essentially when you're doing the right things, but actually the right things haven't had enough time to make a change yet. So many times, just as you mentioned, we give up in that period, but that's actually when everything's working correctly. We just haven't built enough momentum yet. So I think at least if we know that this is normal, it's sort of part of the journey, we might be able to just push through it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's that people have the knowledge, they know what they should be doing, but getting it into a habit, getting it as a skill first, and then having it as a habit takes time, and I think that's something I'm often remembering myself and others, is that these things take time. They don't fix something like this overnight. And I think, how do we then, that's my question always to people, how do we keep that going? What is it that you're going to do? And the toolkit idea of let's have lots of different things in there that you can rely upon at different times. One size doesn't fit all is my other big thing. Remembering we are all individual and we all need different things.
Absolutely. And if we can approach that sort of toolkit with the idea of we're going to explore and we're just going to be curious and find out what works for us, then if we come across something that doesn't work, then we don't get disheartened. We can go, okay, I explored that, and we can move on to the next one. So I think that's a helpful thing to think about.
Definitely, because otherwise we are giving up too easily, or we're comparing ourselves to others, which is also a lethal combination, because we're not each other. And just because you're looking at someone else, they might be able to do something that isn't right for you, or they've been doing it for a long period of time, and that's why they can do it.
We often make a snap judgment, whereas actually that other person might have had 10 years extra experience and now it looks easy. So are you willing to do the 10 years to get there? And then a lot of people go, oh, maybe not.
Exactly. But if you're comparing yourself, rather than comparing yourself to yourself yesterday, or what was it like yesterday? Well, I did better than today. Great. Let's build on that, rather than be comparing ourselves, unless we are looking to be motivated by them.
Yeah. I mean, comparisons, we don't want to make them all bad, as you mentioned, because sometimes they do give us a nudge to think, oh, all right, maybe my life isn't quite what I want it to be. And sometimes that can give us a push. But I think it's the healthy comparison that we need. And when we've got a meaningful goal, that's when we compare to ourselves, because then it doesn't matter what's going on. We're just comparing to our own progress. So I think that's a really good point, because a lot of the time comparisons does just get bookmarked as all bad. But actually, we do need it sometimes to give us a little bit of a nudge. Yeah. There's been many a times after a Christmas holiday where I've looked at other people getting fitter in January and then thought, yeah, okay, it's time for me to do something. So it does have a role.
It definitely does, but making sure we are being kind to ourselves while we are comparing.
Yeah.
So tell everyone a little bit about your book. You've got a book out.
Yeah, my book is called 6 Steps to Self-Confidence, and it fits really naturally in terms of what we've been talking about, because it's helping you build your own series of tools to help you systematically build confidence. So it kind of gives you a manual of sort of a variety of different techniques that you can then implement and then experiment to find your morning routine. So one thing that I've found is that if we can set things up in the morning, that tends to be our more productive time. Some people, it just doesn't work. But for a lot of people, if we can do something productive in the morning, that will set us up for the rest of the day. So the book is all about helping you to get that morning bit planned and prepped so you can enjoy the rest of your day.
Nice. Sounds brilliant. Okay, so tell everyone where they can find you, Danny.
So I'd recommend, first of all, going to my website, which is www.dannygreevescoaching.com. And on my website, there's a scorecard, which is all about helping you to discover your own inner peace. So it'll give you an idea about where your blocks are at the moment, and then it'll give you some action steps to actually get moving. So that's probably a great first step, and that'll get you going towards your goals.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us on Making Sense. I could chat to you all day, because obviously we have a lot of common ground. I think our backgrounds in terms of training are quite similar. So for me personally, it's always lovely to have somebody who we can have lots of ideas bouncing around.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Making Sense with Alison Blackler. Welcome back. I hope you found that chat with Danny helpful and interesting. And we would love to hear your thoughts and feedback on any part of the show. So do remember you can email the show at any time on makingsense@wirralwave.co.uk. Also, if you have enjoyed some of the content of this show, do check out my books, A Path Travelled, either the first one, How to Make Sense of Your Life, or the second one, How to Make Sense of Relationships. You can get the first chapters of each of these books free if you go onto our website, www.2-minds.co.uk, and you can check out whether they are going to be helpful to you. Or you can obviously pop over to Amazon and read the reviews there and see if it is for you. Okay, so I thought I'd just do a little exercise with you now. And it is just to remind us how hard it is to change a habit, and when habits are just ingrained. So if you're up for this, I would like you to fold your arms. And now I know you folded your arms, I'd like you to unfold your arms in the normal way. And now I'd like you to fold your arms in the opposite way to the way that you normally do it. And just notice what you have to do. And then you need to unfold your arms in the opposite way to the way that you've just done it. And George is here now doing all sorts of things with his arms. It is a great, very simple thing for us to pause and notice how hard it is. Because the auto is whatever you do. If you put your right hand over and your left hand under, that's the norm. And then you'll undo them the same way. But if you make yourself try and think, you have to stop to think about how do I do it. You're having to pause. You're having to be very conscious about it. You can often feel very uncomfortable. It often feels a little bit unnatural. As I said, you probably had to stop and think about it. Does it feel comfortable? Not comfortable when we are doing something. Some people resist that being asked to do something different. So even if you were doing it, you were like, oh, I don't want to do it. That's normal. And it's just a great way of us remembering that when we are making changes, we do have to be very conscious about it. We do need to pause, and it might feel a bit awkward and a bit weird. But if we practiced folding our arms with our different arm first, we would get better at it. So it would be exactly the same as if I said, hold your toothbrush in the other hand tonight to brush your teeth. How good a job would you do? Unless you're ambidextrous, you would probably say, doesn't feel very good, doesn't feel like I've done a great job. But if you encourage yourself to do that every single night, by the end of the week, you would start to feel like, actually, I can do this now. So just remember that little exercise with folding your arms. It's a reminder to say that it's hard. It is hard if you've got a habit that you're doing, a way of doing something is the norm. It's hard to change, but it's not impossible. So just as a little fun exercise, you can always share that with someone you know about getting them to change, to fold their arms in a different way. Okay, so I think it's time for another tune. Let's bring us to a tune that was released in 2000. For me, it is an absolute belter. One More Time by Daft Punk. My favourite line in this tune is, got me feeling so free. I hope you enjoy it.
gonna celebrate. Oh yeah, stop the dancing one more time. You know I'm just feeling celebration tonight. Celebrate, don't wait too late. No, we don't stop. You can't stop. We're gonna celebrate one more time. One more time. One more time. A celebration. You know we're gonna do it right tonight. Hey, just feel it. Music's got me feeling the need. Yeah. Come on. Alright, we're gonna celebrate one more time. Celebrate and dance so free. Music's got me feeling so free. Celebrate and dance so free. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate. Celebrate and dance so free. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate. Celebrate and dance so free. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate. Celebrate and dance so free. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate. Celebrate and dance so free. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate. Celebrate and dance so free. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate. Celebrate and dance so free. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate. Celebrate and dance so free. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate. Celebrate and dance so free. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate. Celebrate and dance so free. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate. Celebrate and dance so free. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate. Celebrate and dance so free. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate. Celebrate and dance so free.
You are listening to Making Sense on Wirral Wave Radio. Hope you enjoyed that tune, certainly one for dancing around to, I think. A few months ago, I had the privilege of listening to an orchestra playing Daft Punk tunes to candlelight in a place in Liverpool. It was absolutely fantastic, and the vision behind the whole concert was to bring classical nearer to modern. Well worth a look if you do get the chance, so do check that out. Okay, so just before we finish, it is time for quote of the show. This time we have chosen one from Dr Wayne Dyer. And Dr Wayne Dyer was an internationally renowned author and speaker in the field of self-development. He wrote more than 40 books, and I've read nearly all of them. I would recommend any of his work because he is very relatable, and literally, yeah, any book that you see for him will be brilliant. But one of his many, many amazing quotes we have picked for this show today, and it goes like this: "Healthy habits are learned in the same way as unhealthy ones, through practice." I think it's interesting that we often talk about how hard it is to get a new habit going, and yet we are usually very good at starting and creating bad ones, often without any effort. So remember, the goal is to think about one small thing that you can do to make a change. We are not aiming for perfect, nor trying to make huge changes in one go. If we are all able to do one small thing this week based on what you've heard today, have a think about what would it be for you. We're just going to take little steps that gives us the changes. Ultimately, I always say to people, it's like a jigsaw. Lots of little different parts bring together the big change like a jigsaw. Okay, so we have come to the end of another show. Thank you so much for listening in. We really want you to help us develop this show into something that is useful and fun for you. But we need to hear from you for this to happen. If you've been listening in at any time or through the website, please do message in with any feedback. We can incorporate this into the next episode. Remember, you can email the show at any time on makingsense@wirralwave.co.uk. And please do send in your requests. We do love picking the tunes for this show with a great message, but we'd love to hear suggestions from you. You might be able to come up with a perfect one for a show, but it's always got to have a good vibe and a good lyric. So thank you so much to Danny Greeves for taking the time to come and chat with me. Remember, you can check out his website, greevescoaching.com. Thank you also to George for his skills in the production of this show. Thank you also to Wirral Wave team for giving us this opportunity. And thank you to you for listening in. Remember, let your friends know about Wirral Wave. It is a community radio, and you can check out all the other shows during the week. There is a jam-packed schedule and certainly something different for everyone. In our next show, we will have a special guest, Tamsin Hartley from The Listening Space. She will share a very special meditation to help focus the mind. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you. We will leave you with a great tune, and this is a request, a cover of a powerful, though quite an edgy version. My friend Charlie from Bedfordshire has requested Feeling Good by Muse. In the meantime, be kind to yourself. Bye for now.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Reeds drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom in the trees, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. It's a new life for me, and I'm feeling